Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new webinar of the Research Working Group of the ERN TransplantChild. Today, we are going to summarize the results of a survey that we launched around the different members of the ERN TransplantChild regarding the ongoing activities in terms of research projects that in which they may be involved, and also as a way to detect or to inquire about interest that the different centers may have in order to detect research projects in which the research working group and different members could be involved for future opportunities of funding. And we prepared a questionnaire that was just circulated to all the member centers, and also with the idea of identifying one particular area in which we could detect the highest interest, and that could be the focus of the efforts of the research working group in the next years. This does not exclude that any project that is ongoing or any project that may arise during the different meetings and conversations of the network could also be supported by the research working group, but this was an effort to identify the priority areas for all of the research working group members. So this is a short presentation with the results of this survey, and that was prepared by my colleague Yadira Bravo, who is the medical manager of the ERN TransplantChild, and this is just the results of that survey. So we have 22 centers answering the survey. 15 of them were members, the original members of the network, and it's very interesting to know that the new members that joined recently the ERN TransplantChild also had participated in the survey, and it's good to know that they are already involved in the activities of the research working group. So we have 5 answers from members that just joined ERN TransplantChild, and that were at that time in the process of joining TransplantChild, and 2 affiliated partners that are also members of the network, not full members, but they're also very active in participating in different activities of the network. So I must say that Italy, which is one of the countries that has more member centers in our network, was we had a higher number of responses from Italian members, followed by Sweden and Spain. And you know that TransplantChild has a transversal view of the issues related with transplantation. So normally we address all our activities and all our projects just seeing common aspects of the different programs of transplant, but we also, in terms of analysis, like to just divide or just to analyze who were the members or the type of transplantation programs that just offer more responses. So because the centers that participate, many of the centers that participate have liver transplant programs, we see that just as also is understandable because the number of the transplants performed in different centers, that the groups that were involved mostly in liver programs and kidney programs of transplantation were the ones that offer higher the higher numbers of responses. So it's very good to know that almost all the responding centers are already involved in different research projects that are related to the transplantation area, to different clinical or experimental model of transplantation. So when we ask about previous projects that the centers, the responding centers were involved in, you see that 83% of the responses indicated that they were involved in clinical or translational monitoring projects. This is understandable because, well, as you know, our network is formed by hospitals that are involved in different programs, and we see that at least the people that respond to the survey are mostly involved in clinical and translational research. And it's also good to know that we have some basic research that's ongoing in the different centers. So 17% of the responses indicated that they were involved in experimental models. I think that this needs a reflection, and is that obviously most of the centers of the departments that are involved in transplant child are clinical departments. So it's understandable that most of the research that they perform is clinical translational research. But we know that there are different, most of the centers that participate in transplant child are university hospitals, and many of them are linked to research institutions. So we always try not only to reach the clinicians or the translational researchers that are involved in the ERN transplant child, but we hope also that if these centers are collaborating or host or support basic researchers, or just researchers that also address basic aspects of the around the research area of transplantation, that we also attract them to the network, and that the network could also support their efforts in terms of research. So one of the goals of the surveys and one of the goals of our efforts in the research working group is not only reaching the clinicians, but also the researchers that may be just supporting these clinicians. Many of the clinical projects, research projects, were related with liver and kidney transplantation, and you know that little by little we just achieved our goal. That is that those research projects that are started or that are initially focused on one particular type of transplant could also be expanded, or could also be applied to other types of transplants, when the topic just could be seen as a translational transversal effort. So one of the things that we promote is that if any of the participants in the network is just developing a research project that just because starts in a department that is focused in one type of transplant, that any of the focus or any of the objectives that they just initially attempted to address in one type of transplantation could be expanded to other centers, just to obviously make these projects multi-center, but also to other type of transplants. And we are glad to see that we are achieving that sometimes one of the projects starts in one particular team and then evolves to involve more types of transplants and more centers. This is just a collection of just the title of some of the ongoing projects, or the projects that just are addressed in the research centers. So you see that they are very diverse. As you know, we have not only focus on the solid organ transplantation, but also hematopoietic stem cell transplantation. So we see projects that are devoted to the analysis of immune reconstitution after hematopoietic stem cell transplantation. But also, we also see interest in this type of analysis of the immune status in solid organ transplant projects that are also involving protocols of transplantation that include a high dose or a high or an intense conditioning initial immunosuppression. So we have a lot of interest in the long-term effects or consequences of immunosuppression, not only in terms of monitoring and trying to do a more personalized monitoring, but also in terms of quality of life and the quality of life and the long-term consequences of immunosuppression. So we have interest in different aspects of programs, like, for instance, the outcomes of transplantation with ABO incompatible donors, also viral complications, also different aspects in terms of the possibility of detecting operational tolerance and to address, or how to address the decrease in immunosuppression. And also we see interest in the possibility of including more monitoring, more specifically, in a more personalized way, the post-transplantation period. We also have interest in evaluating early markers or early biomarkers of graft damage in terms of rejection. and also the inclusion of new ways to analyze the pharmacodynamics or pharmacokinetics of immunosuppressants with a more pharmacological or pharmacogenomic view. We also see interest in alternative to different, not to whole organ transplantation, but some strategies of cellular therapy that could substitute the need of a whole organ transplantation. This is mostly obviously addressing in liver transplantation. And we also have interest in the outcome of different types of transplants in different diseases, like for instance, metabolic diseases, immunodeficiency diseases, or the use of new approaches to detect graft injury, like for instance, the use of FibroScan. So this is just something similar to what we offered before. This is not a focus on previous projects. So far, I outlined the results when we asked about previous projects that were already finished or just about to finish. This is just more focused on the ongoing projects, and it's somehow in the same line. This was also to get some information about projects that may be still open or they may be still ongoing, and that could give us an idea of how we could expand, if the principal investigators were willing to do so, how to escalate these projects and just offer the whole support and the whole capacity of the network to escalate these projects to other type of centers or other type of transplants or other centers. So we, as we see, we have interest in some strategies of allogenic stem cell transplantation with the use of alternative donors, new estimation techniques of immunosuppression in different types of transplant. Also some projects concerning, again, the long-term effect of immunosuppression, the detection of new biomarkers of kidney injury, or the use of alternative donors as disease donors with ABO incompatible organs. And also, we also detect obviously ongoing interest and increasing interest in, as I said before, immunosuppression and the personalized follow-up of monitoring of the different treatments. We also see interest in more proactive projects that are trying to either compensate or just ameliorate the impact of chronic diseases in the transplanted children, using, for instance, the adoptive T-cell therapy for reactivation of different herpes viruses. Also, the use of mesenchymal cells to attenuate the effect of the procoagulant effect of hepatocyte transplantation. And also different attempts to detect just the long-term effects for the organ as fibrosis in liver. Then we try to not only see what is going and what has been completed in the last years, but also what will be the future on how we could organize or structurize the future different areas of interest. And then obviously we just offer a whole overview of the different options that we could foresee for the next years. We divided the different areas of research interest in either experimental models for to investigate or to get a deeper view of basic aspects of the transplant procedures, either with animal models that could be not only dedicated, for instance, to the surgery technique, but also to the mechanisms of rejection, the possible impact of different manipulations of the graft, not only in hematopoietic stem cell transplantation, but also in solid organ transplantation to ameliorate the long-term effects of rejection, and also some translational projects in this area that could also escalate this effort to the patients themselves to identify some still aspects that are more basic of the immunopathogenesis, for instance, of rejection or some other areas. We also obviously have some ongoing clinical trials or clinical studies, and we detect an interest in the possible use of combined solid organ transplantation and hematopoietic stem cell transplantation to induce tolerance, the possible induction of tolerance or amelioration of graft prevalence by the use of cell therapies like regulatory T cells. And we see that this is an area with high interest for the future, which is the induction or the attempt to induct tolerance by different strategies. And obviously, we can only not think as a research working group in ongoing projects, but also how to, together with the education working group, how to promote education for our future researchers in terms of research basis of research proposals or basics of research techniques or just surgical techniques for animal models. And obviously, not only thinking in models, but when we think in ongoing clinical practice, for many of us, you know that the holy grail would be to identify solid biomarkers that could alert or could just inform us with anticipation of the possible development of a rejection or just a very intense immunosuppression and the risk of infection. And obviously, there is an interest in further efforts to get more information about the pathologic specimens once we have programs that have just continuous biopsies in order to follow up the situation of the graft, but also the introduction of omic technologies. And we have a parallel effort in this working group in which we are just about to prepare a document that has really analyzed what's the state of the art of the introduction of omics approaches in technologies in the follow-up of solid organ transplantation and hematopoietic stem cell transplantation in children, but also the possibility of using different strategies to enhance capacities of cells like adoptive therapy, anti-inflammatory properties of mesenchymal cells, or as I said before, the use of regulatory T cells to induce tolerance, and also some interest in different areas of pharmacological aspects of the immunosuppressants, and obviously what will be the efficacy and safety of all these measures in the future clinical use of new developments in the area of transplantation. And also, we just after offering this whole picture or this panoramic of the different types of research that we could try to address, we really ask for somehow the grading of the just prioritization of the different areas in which the participants in the survey could have more interest. And then we detected that there is still a huge interest in the possibility of increasing our capacity to analyze the immunosuppression levels or the net effect of the immunosuppression in post-transplantation. That's probably including the monitoring of pharmacological aspects of immunosuppression, but also the consequences for the immune competence of immunosuppression. As I said, we have a lot of interest among the people responding the questionnaire of the possible combined use of either hematopoietic stem cell transplantation or different versions or just variants of cell therapy combined with a solid organ transplantation to induce tolerance, and also the possible increase of the number of biomarkers in terms of pathology or histopathology that could help to detect the impact of immunosuppression. Then somehow we still so we detect that there is a lot of interest in obviously trying to increase even more the good levels of the good outcomes that many of the transplant programs already have for so many years, but I seem to try to go a little bit further and just achieve, if it's possible, just a further success with these new incorporations that probably will be mostly related with the capacity of either more specifically monitoring in a personalized way each patient, to detect tolerance by the introduction of new biomarkers, and to induce tolerance by different strategies. And again, if we subdivide the different answers in the different areas according to the type of transplants that the different centers perform, obviously, just because the number of transplantation and the number of transplants done, the two programs that just express more interest are liver and kidney. So we also include an open question to give the opportunity to all the participants in the survey to mention or to specify with more detail any of the ongoing projects that they may want to share with the research working group, and even to scale to other centers. And then I think that this is a good summary of what we just discussed before. So with this, we will prepare the strategy for the next years of the research working group. We then just gave this strategy an acronym, which is TIMPSOT, which is the strategy of the network to support, to promote, and to help, and to obviously participate in projects that are just focused on the induction of tolerance or the detection of tolerance. So we have some specific projects that some of the members that respond to the survey really wanted to offer to the other centers, which are as I say, the use of CD34 cells combined with solid organ transplantation, with solid organ transplantation as an attempt to induce tolerance, the possibility of exploring the role of non-HLA directed antibodies or even autoantibodies in liver and other organs as a way to explore different mechanisms of humoral immune rejection, and also the introduction of omic technologies to approach different areas of interest as early detection of rejection, or on the contrary, the detection of tolerance. There is an interesting project ongoing with the use of free circulating DNA as an immunological biomarker in kidney transplant. And also there is a proposal of extending one study that is ongoing in one single center, which is the quantification of intracellular tacrolimus to other centers, as I say, to escalate this project to other members. So this survey just try to offer a general overview. Obviously, these exercises have to be done from time to time. We don't want to overcome you with overloaded you with a lot of surveys, but it's the only way for us to detect which are their interests, which are the status of different projects. And for this, and more specifically in future meetings of the research working group, or in the dedicated time for the different working groups of the board of the network, anytime we meet, we will try to really be more specific, and with the goal, even in the future, of just putting together a group of centers that may be interested in participating in common projects, or even applying together to different calls. And with this, if you have any question, you could just make this question through the web, and we will just answer your questions. And thank you very much for your attention, and we'll see you in the next opportunity, in the next webinar of the research working group. Thank you very much.